This is emergency for the first time in America. This is Jim, and
receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus. You have accessed entry 818.JB1414, certificate number 29314. Bridey Murphy.
Scratched the paint off my bed. It was a metal bed. I scratched the paint off of it.
Why did you do that?
I don't know. I was just mad.
What is your name?
Bridey.
Your name is what?
Bridey Murphy.
And where do you live?
I live in Cork.
Now, the future listeners will not
Cork.
care about this at all because they don't have the Gregorian calendar, and maybe they don't have any calendar.
As far as you know.
They may not have the sun. Yeah, maybe Pope Gregory is huge then.
Futurelings may be Gregorian calendars.
Like their little desk calendars?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it open and close like a Muppet desk calendar?
It could be a thing where after the explosions have blown out all the windows, all the desk calendars sat flapping in the wind, and that flapping motion was enough to
create
life. Yeah, to create
Sentience?
life and ultimately consciousness.
Well, humor is one of the hardest tasks for any artificial intelligence algorithm. But if you could feed enough far side panels into a matrix, maybe you could mass produce intelligence.
I mean, think about what are Tibetan prayer flags? They're meant to say those prayers as they flap in the wind, right? That's how the prayer flag concept works.
All I'm saying is we don't even know, like maybe they don't have day and night. They may not have the sun.
Oh, I see.
They certainly don't have our yearly 12-month calendar, but in our era, it is the season of Halloween. That wasn't Corinthian doing a sound effect. That was a real ghost.
Oh, the real ghost.
No, it was not a ghost. Oh, whoa, it's back. That's crazy. I was trying to figure out on the way over here if you are a Halloween guy. Because on the one hand, you're Mr. Dress Up.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Dress Up.
Love an outfit.
La-di-da.
But on the other hand, you seem like you would not be a fan of millennials absorbing something which really rightly should be the custom of children in our generation.
Oh, when I was a kid, my two favorite holidays were 4th of July and Halloween. 4th of July for obvious reasons.
Wow, take that, Jesus.
Because I was a pyromaniac and loved anything that you could light on fire. And then Halloween because it was...
Because you were soaping windows.
I mean, it's such a magical night.
Why? Because people give you free sugar?
Well, no, because you sit there with your mom with the lights out looking at your Halloween tree, waiting for the great pumpkin to arrive.
It was a little different in your household. There was less sitting with my mom on Halloween when I was a kid.
No, I love to dress up. I love to go out in the night. And
you are one acquainted with the night.
Yeah.
You have walked out in rain and back in rain. You have outwalked the farthest city light.
No.
You like alleys is what I'm saying.
I like an alley. I'll walk down an alley.
But nobody's giving you candy corn in an alley. Or if they offer, you should probably not go.
I belong to the streets. I belong to the city. I'm living in a river of darkness, Ken.
You belong to the city. You belong to the night.
Yeah, that's right.
So you don't mind that it's kind of become an adult thing where everyone's dressing up as slutty Waluigi.
I mean, I have, as you can imagine, very strong feelings about how you should celebrate Halloween. I don't think that you should celebrate Halloween for an entire week. I don't think that you should. If Halloween falls on a Wednesday, I think you should celebrate it on a Wednesday.
But it's the day before, and I'm already dressed like Austin Powers right here. You think that's in poor taste?
I couldn't tell.
You always show up in a purple velvet suit
You always basically dress like
Austin Powers.
like a thrift store Austin Powers. No, I like Halloween. I think Halloween is a good holiday. Also, it has some, like all the great holidays, it has something ageless
About Satan.
Something about Satan.
Like all the great holidays.
You know, we have the holidays where we laugh, and we should also have holidays where we cry. Right? The Jews have celebration holidays, but also sad crying holidays.
You're saying Halloween is a day of mourning to you?
No.
Do you fast?
No.
Do you cover the mirrors?
I do not fast, no. But, you know, Christian holidays, there are thoughtful ones.
Sure, we got Good Friday.
But there aren't, like, scary ones. We don't confront the dark.
We don't have Day of the Dead in North America, in, Anglo-Christian tradition.
So Halloween kind of fills in that gap. And then, when I became a teenager, Halloween was absolutely my favorite holiday because I was a terrible, terrible kid, a plague on my neighborhood, and ultimately a plague on all of Anchorage, Alaska.
But to this day, they talk about you.
They do. Do you remember the Halloween of 1984? Ugh.
Throwing eggs?
No, not eggs. Those are bad kids, but
Well, what do good kids do instead?
toilet paper. Toilet paper and fork.
I'm impressed they have toilet paper in Alaska.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it
was new.
It was made out of reeds.
It was made out of blubber.
Do you like Halloween?
So I love Halloween as a children's holiday.
You like candy.
I do like candy, although I don't like a lot of Halloween candy. I don't like those little wax pumpkins. Don't like candy corn.
Wax pumpkins? Who likes those?
Right. Why do they sell
that?
Those?
Seems like a straw man. I don't like Halloween candy.
I don't like that famous Halloween candy that everyone likes. Those little wax pumpkins.
You know, that candy made out of crickets. I don't like that either.
I don't like Tootsie Rolls. I don't like a lot of the canonical Halloween candies.
Yeah.
I just want a little candy bar. If it's a house that's not giving out full-size candy bars, which would it kill them? Like, they should at least be giving out the fun-size candy bars.
You just threw major shade on anybody that doesn't give out a full-size candy bar.
Well, it's, in my neighborhood, there's a few houses that do it. I think maybe because it's a creepy guy that wants to touch more kids. And all the kids know, like every year, it's like, last year, this house had full-size candy bars. But sometimes they'll go, and guess what? They won't have them this year.
You know what? Full-size candy bars aren't what they once were. So what I want is a house that gives out vintage candy bars. Hershey bars that are with the dimensions that they had in 1980.
But like, have they kept them for 30 or 40 years?
No, I don't think they would keep.
The Hershey turns gray and crumbly in like 10 minutes.
I'm not going to get into this, like, are you pro or con Hershey?
No.
I
didn't know that was such a minefield.
I've spent a lot of time on the internet arguing with people about Hershey
People
bars.
from Pennsylvania.
Well, and from England, who think that they're Cadbury bars.
So we're getting pretty far afield here, which we never do. But when I was in England last summer, there were all these kind of big, glitzy, Wonka-y candy stores in all the tourist centers, near Trafalgar Square or Piccadilly or whatever. And I went into one with my kids because it's a siren song for children.
Right.
And you know what they had? They did not have like fun international candy. They had
licorice and little pumpkins.
They had like, to them, over-the-top excess is just our regular food. So it's like, look at this, Pop-Tarts in 3 flavors, Frosted Flakes and Lucky Charms. They straight up had like our regular food, and they were like, look at this crazy junk food. and it was just like shelves and shelves of American candy. And,
wow.
And I was like, you guys have really good chocolate in this country. You don't have to eat Butterfinger. But to them, it sets their little hearts racing.
The equivalent here in America would be a little shop in Times Square that you walked in and the eggs and the cream were just sitting on the shelf unrefrigerated. And there were a bunch of cans of beans and that'd be about it, right?
I honestly think to them, it's more like if meth were legal. It would be like here going in some store, they just sell all these different kinds and colors of meth, because that's what they want, but they don't have it in their tradition.
But they don't. They've only just started celebrating Halloween in
we've definitely
the UK and other places.
We're colonizers again. I think Australia and places are starting. I saw a picture on the internet this week of somebody in Australia putting up a sign that said, "If you're trick or treating, this isn't America, you little C words."
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh, so it's become another proxy for hating America.
Yeah, but
Halloween,
but deserved. I mean, if you are not prepared to give candy out to strangers, you should not have to give candy to strangers at your home.
Well, just do what we do here in America. Turn off the lights. Turn off the lights and go inside.
I definitely knocked it with my kids a couple of years ago at a door where it was maybe a recent immigrant couple that did not know what was going on. And they kind of looked they did not know to turn off their lights,
Right.
So they kind of looked a little
They kept answering the door all
hesitant.
night long. Like,
what is happening?
why are you doing this to us?
Well, they withdraw into their house, and I'm like, what is she going to come back with? Like, is she going to give us like
Right.
pancakes or like what is about to happen?
Unleavened bread.
And she comes out with her purse and like gives my son $1 bill.
Oh,
Just to get him to go away. And of course, he's over the moon. That was the best thing that happened all night is some poor Chinese lady's scared into giving him $1.
that would be expensive over the course of a night, though. Like, I just gave away $80.
Maybe, I think it was when our kids were kind of little. Maybe this was early, and at that point, she'd figured it out and turned off her lights. Or maybe she just thought it was extortion night here in the land of the free.
Wait, I'm just realizing, just give every kid $1. That just changes the whole game, right? I mean,
For the better, or?
well, yeah, I mean, a full-size candy bar per kid is going to cost you. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you get them in bulk, you get them less for $1, but $50, $50, you take care of every kid, and you're the hero of the world.
I just give them Bitcoin.
Oh, really?
No, you know what kids actually like, which you can get for $0.25 at a used bookstore, is like old comics. I give them candy too, because if you don't give them out candy, you're like the dentist family that's
Sure.
giving out toothbrushes.
Try
on
these
Halloween.
chick comics.
Yeah, exactly. I always have the weird Christian Archies. Why do we talk about those on every entry?
Christian Archies.
I love Christian Archie. No, it's just, I'll find old comics, but with people they know. Oh, it's Wonder Woman, it's Wolverine,
Right.
And kids will love to just pick out a comic from a little card table in addition to.
I mean, I thinking back to my Halloween before all those razor blade scares and Tylenol murders, there were people that would hand out candied apples. They'd come out with a tray of freshly
People would
made
make you
homemade
fudge.
candied apples and fudge, and you'd get fruit sometimes and not like them, but also
Right.
toys and stuff. Like, did you trick or treat for UNICEF?
No, how does that even work? I trick-or-treated for one entity, Ken Jennings.
Trick or treating for UNICEF was a thing where you went around your neighborhood pre trick or treat hour. So like
in the afternoon?
yeah, late afternoon, sort of 5:00. You went around with a box that said UNICEF. It was like a cardboard box you got at school, and you tried to collect money.
Oh, you're not getting candy. You're not getting Snickers bars to send to Audrey Hepburn.
No, and a lot of kids were doing it at the time. I guess this is the mid 70s. You'd fill up that box and then send the money, take the money to school, and it went to UNICEF. And I don't know what it did. It bought fertilizer or something for. There were a lot of famines in the 70s that everyone was afraid that we were on our way to a global famine. I don't know if you remember global famine as the
band that you liked?
as the panic cause of 1977.
Yeah, no, I'm putting my hand to one of my earphones right now so I can sing a jaunty anthem about how I'm against
We
famine.
are the world.
We don't like famine. Please eat food. Take it, Rod Stewart.
Tonight, thank God it's them instead of you.
That's a tasteless
That's an
lyric.
awful lyric.
Really? Yeah, we know Elton John or whoever sings that part.
No, it wasn't Elton John. Isn't that, was it Bono that sang that? It seems very Bono.
Bono's just going to go home and tuck into his Irish soda bread and corned beef and be like, boy, they don't have this in Ethiopia, do they?
They know it's Christmas? Why would they care it's Christmas?
There are Ethiopian Christians. A few of them might know it's Christmas.
No, there are a lot of Ethiopian Christians, but they weren't talking about Ethiopia and We Are the World. Weren't they talking about somewhere in...
Well, Do They Know the Christmas and We Are the World are two different things. But I thought they were both. Ethiopia.
Yeah, We Are the World and USA for Africa and Hands Across America were all in response to the mid-'80s Ethiopian and Sudanese famines.
Oh, you looked it up.
And they...
Hands Across America, really?
Yeah. And they raised over $50 million over time and have delivered tremendous amounts of that money in the form of humanitarian aid.
Well, once our empire declines, they'll be doing Hands Across Ethiopia to benefit us.
To benefit the Americans.
So what goes around comes around.
Actually, what they're doing now is they're building Chinese railroads across Ethiopia.
Right. And everywhere else.
And that's not going to benefit the United States.
I like Halloween. I kind of chafe at this idea that it just becomes an excuse for child men to day drink for a week every fall.
Agreed. You've made a couple of disparaging comments about millennial appropriation of Halloween. What are the millenniums doing? It's a drinking holiday now?
Well, yeah, they didn't figure out that it's a children's holiday.
Yeah.
Like they thought, well, I did this as children. I'm going to keep doing it forever. That's the millennial entitlement. Things should be like they were for me always. That's kind of the boomer entitlement too, actually. And
my number one objection is when people go to Halloween parties and don't dress up or make
Yeah.
make
Or make
no
a token
attempt.
thing. What if they have a lame sign?
Yeah, or like a fake mustache that I got at the drugstore. Like, no, it's like live a little, you know?
I will definitely give candy to teens who are too old to be trick-or-treating, but only if they dress up. Like if they're just teens who want candy, I'm not giving them candy.
What do you do? What do you say to a teen who's standing there sullenly on your porch wanting candy with no costume?
The thing about these teens today, they're too lazy to actually soap my windows or whatever. They'd have to find a YouTube video to tell them how to do it.
Right.
So you can just be like, you didn't dress up, go away and
and
close
they
the door.
just slump off.
They do. They're bummed though. Maybe they say something mean about me on Nextdoor.
Meh.
You do have to be, I'm mindful of the fact that Halloween is meaningful to like, some segment of the queer population where it's a chance to actually let your freak flag fly.
It
front
was
of the streets.
back when there were no opportunities to let your freak flag fly, but now I think it's lost.
It's devalued.
Yeah, for sure it is.
Well, I just remember like kind of thinking Rocky Horror Picture Show was the dumbest, because I didn't get it. I'm Brad and Janet, like I don't.
Yeah, but that was
I don't need
1985.
that.
I mean, the last time, the only people that go to see Rocky Horror Picture Show now are 50 years old.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's my peer group.
Yeah, who are just like, remember when this was all we had?
Yeah, and that's what I didn't realize. Like it was all they had. So, but
And Gloria Gaynor.
But I do love like the spooky, macabre kind of aspects of Halloween. I like to be scared. I like a scary movie.
Do you get scared?
I get scared of things that are a bummer. I get scared of dying alone.
No. But I mean, do you get scared? We've never really discussed your feelings about ghosts and monsters.
Like if I watch a scary movie, like I will pull the covers. I'll go straight to bed and pull the covers up around.
Like
my
supernatural
face.
stuff will get inside your head.
Yeah, not because I think really on some level, wait, what if they are living in my house? I'm pretty sure they're not. I mean,
Right.
everybody has a cell phone now. If we would have seen
Sure.
the ghosts or the lizard man or whatever.
Sure.
But movies do get inside you, and not just like slasher movies with jump scares. Like it's really like the movie with some kind of disorienting, off-putting, otherworldly thing going on.
Right.
David Lynch type sound design or weird Stanley Kubrick camera work, or that's the kind of movie that messes me up. And that's coming back. Like that's today's horror movie. Weird, offbeat.
Like not the whole like blood coming out of the toilet stuff, but
Yeah, not that somebody's hiding behind the door with an axe, but really more like your troubled relationship with your mother is hiding behind the door with an axe. And you get Hereditary and The Babadook and The Witch and all these movies where the horror actually is something horrific and not just a dude in a William Shatner mask.
The Babadook is a perfect example. One of my favorite internet memes is the young woman who went to a Halloween party and dressed meticulously as the Babadook and then showed up and realized it was like a millennial Halloween party where nobody had a costume on and they were just all sitting around drinking wine and watching TV.
In our generation, that was a prank. You'd tell one party that it was a costume party. It was bullying, basically.
There's this genius picture of her sitting on the couch at this otherwise like completely pedestrian party, and she's just like Babadook from head to toe and just, trying to pull it off.
Well, I hope she's happy. Like, people who, there are people for whom it's Halloween every day now, people who are LARPing and cosplaying in various ways.
I think she's happy because it became a meme that has gone around the world. I mean, she's made me happy.
I hope it exists in the future. The least spooky decade, though, to me, when I was thinking about this last night, is the 1950s.
Not spooky, you say?
Spooky in real life. Spooky, the Red Scare, the bomb, the communists, nuclear winter.
Right.
Scary for real, and yet a real lull in terms of the macabre.
The macabre.
Horror culture is kind of takes a break in the 50s. All those great Universal monster movies of the 30s and 40s are done. The Haunting of Hill House and Psycho will not come out until 59, so there's not even iconic scary books. Hitchcock is doing kind of lush Technicolor psychodrama like Red Window and Vertigo, or big entertainments like North by Northwest. Even The Master of Suspense is not actually scaring people very much.
Yeah, I guess the Munsters and all of that stuff didn't happen until the 60s.
Yeah, the 60s is when you get that kind of revival of kind of spooky in kind of a jolly, fun party store vein where you get the Munsters and the Addams Family.
All that Rat Fink hot rod culture that was kind of monstery.
Yeah, the monster mash.
The monster mash.
The idea that monsters are fun and goofy, but also it's kind of a spooky gothic vibe.
Right.
And yet real gothic stuff had kind of ended in the 40s. There were a ton of, great, moody, black and white haunted house movies in the 40s, but in the 50s, not so much.
So no fun in the 50s.
Flying saucers, I guess.
But that was 47 was the first flying saucer. I guess
it must have continued, right?
Yeah.
Like there was some of that, like the unexplained is around us. But to me, the great spooky, unexplained fad of the 50s has to do with reincarnation, the case of Bridey Murphy. Are you a believer in reincarnation? Do you believe you've lived past lives, John?
There are people close to me, even members of my own family, who believe in reincarnation and who talk about it at family gatherings as though it's a thing we all know to be true.
That's cool that you're not naming them here because you're about to diss them, I think.
So I am well versed in the doctrines of reincarnation.
You're an initiate?
I know all about and it's an example, I think, of like how pop Buddhism sort of went into the culture and just got pushed into the cookie dough of all the pop Asiatic philosophies.
Because in Buddhism, it is not a fad. It really is the purpose of life to keep coming back, and your karma determines whether you're progressing or not. It's really the basis of everything they believe about the purpose of life. And here it's more of a fun thing for rich ladies to do.
Yeah, it's just sort of a like instant karma's going to get you. And if it doesn't,
yeah, we use karma to mean like getting splashed by a mud puddle if you flipped off a car or something.
Right, but the idea being, I think that as practiced in my family, that you come multiple times, sort of again like a half understood Buddhism, you come and play out life after life in order to work your way up a ladder, some universal ladder that each time you have a new thing to learn. Each life you have a new thing to overcome on your way to being, I guess, in the light.
And if you don't learn it, you're going to come back as something worse.
Come back.
If you were a human, you might be a raccoon, a washing bear. If you were a St. Bernard, you might be a rock.
So there's that, it's the double edge, right, of coming back is a punishment because you didn't figure it out. You were a bad driver in this life, so you're going to come back as a traffic cop. But also... Oh,
it's a Twilight Zone irony reincarnation?
A little bit, but also then, like life isn't thought of as a prison either. It's thought of as a Sunday school. Like you're here to learn that lesson again, Johnny.
Well, in kind of the decadent Western dumbed down version of reincarnation, the holes that are often poked in it are the following. First of all, everyone thinks they were someone famous.
Oh, well, so this is past life cult, right? Or past life pop sensation, which is somewhat different than reincarnation, right?
It's implied, right? Unless this is my first life, I must have been somebody before I was me.
Right.
And, if you don't remember, does it even count? Well, that's what I don't understand about reincarnation.
I don't think in Buddhist tradition, you wake up in the middle of the night and go, I was a Scottish prince. Right? I mean, you're on the cycle, but you're not bringing any memories along. And the Western permutation of it or bastardization of it is that, oh yeah, you're Ramtha or whatever.
Yeah, that's, Buddhism is about letting go of attachments. But in the West, we're like, no, got to have my attachment. I got to remember when I was.
Yeah.
And everybody's somebody famous.
Right.
You're always Cleopatra or Alexander the Great. You're never just some peasant's daughter who died of cholera at age 5.
Well, or Cleopatra's like handmaiden.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's so bold.
Famous adjacent. You feel like nobody actually claims to be a celebrity. It's more like.
It can't be Cleopatra, but they could definitely be like the minister of transportation for Cleopatra's public admin sector.
My theory is that, the lull between lives should be short. Right. Which means if we're reincarnated as somebody famous, or if we were somebody famous in a past life, it would be whoever died immediately before our birthday. So I actually looked up to see who died right before I was born in 1974.
Right.
And it's kind of a celebrity wasteland. You have to go back a full month before you come across either Bud Abbott of Abbott and Costello. I could be Bud Abbott reincarnated.
That's not unlikely.
Or Agnes Moorehead from Orson Welles' theater company, and also Endora on Bewitched. So I could be a groundbreaking lesbian dowager actress. Or a couple days before I was born, the Symbionese Liberation Army killed a bunch of LAPD cops in some awful shootout. So I could have been a cop murdered by the Symbionese Liberation Army.
Well, I was born in...
What's your birth date?
I was born in 1968, which was a very auspicious year for famous people dying.
Oh man, that was great.
If you can recall.
Remember the good days.
But let's see. I mean, let's assume that I'm not Martin Luther King or Robert Kennedy.
Anyone who has met you will assume you're not. I don't know about Robert Kennedy though.
I could be Robert Kennedy.
Didn't your dad campaign for Bobby?
Dad and Bobby did not get along, but he did. Dad liked John. Dad worked for JFK, and he thought that Bobby was a real jerk.
What month were you born?
So I was born in September, and unfortunately here in my list of famous deaths, there's a huge empty spot right there in August and September.
I'm the same way. So what's your birthday? I should know this. It just happened.
Yeah, it just happened.
It's late September then.
Mid-September.
You don't want people to know your birthday because
then they give me all the happy birthday. So I mean, Robert F. Kennedy died in June of '68. So let's assume that I'm RFK. It's
got to be more recent than that. You know who died just a few weeks before?
I mean, Wes Montgomery, but that's still in June.
Ulysses S. Grant III died August 29th.
I don't think I'm Ulysses S. Grant III reincarnated.
You don't think you were the grandson of Ulysses S. Grant? He's some kind of Army Corps of Engineers guy.
I would be the ghost of the grandson of Ulysses S. Grant. I feel like RFK could have spent a little bit of time there purgatorially wandering around.
I figured it out. July 28th, Otto Hahn, German discoverer won the Nobel Prize for discovering nuclear fission.
Oh.
It explains your obsession with the bomb, the atomic age.
And Germany.
Yeah. Was he a Nazi or not a Nazi? This is going to explain a lot either way.
Let's find out.
Opponent, he left. I think he was a Jewish scientist who left, came to America.
He won the Nobel Prize. Yeah. Okay. I'll be Otto Hahn. Sure. There
job. It's way better than Bud Abbott.
Thanks. I feel pretty good about that.
But the other hole that often gets poked in reincarnation is the fact that there are now 7 billion people, and where did they come from if at one point the world's population was a few million?
Right. Every time someone dies, they split into 3 new spirits that go to inhabit little babies.
It's like the Egyptian spirit. Like you get the Ka, you get the Ba, and you get the Ak or whatever.
I wonder what part of Otto Hahn I am and how many other half Hans there are.
Yeah, if you meet somebody and you realize you have a strange rapport with them, that could be the other half of Otto Hahn.
Yeah, wait a minute. When were you born? We have Otto Hahn in common.
I guess it could explain why today your average person, it seems to be kind of just a very watered down version of somebody 300 years ago. Like if you compare a Barbary pirate or a Sioux warrior to some kid today playing board games or kickball with his weird beard and walking his emotional support turkey.
Well, I was thinking about this yesterday because I was looking a little bit into the life of Frank Sinatra for another one of my media properties.
Your media empire.
He turned 50 in 1965. He released 4 albums that year, 2 films, and he won a Grammy Award the following year and married 21-year-old Mia Farrow. And
ring-a-ding-ding.
Was just absolutely every day of the week. I'm sure people were throwing scripts at him. He was walking from helicopters to yachts. That was what it was like for him to be 50. And for me to be 50, last night I sat and had a piece of paper and I tested every pen in the house to make sure that they all worked. And any pen that didn't scribble a line in the first 3 tries, I threw in the garbage. Just, trying to get some of the old pens out of here.
And how many times did you seduce 21-year-old Mia Farrow last night?
It was 0 times.
0 in reality.
0 times. And also, even in my imagination, I wasn't seducing Mia Farrow.
You don't have that kind of you don't have that kind of stamina in your imagination anymore.
I don't. I'm so tired. So yeah, times have really changed.
Well, Frank might have had some advantages you did not, like Benzedrine, maybe.
Benzedrine. Well, and a mob uncle.
Right. Unlimited mob connections. But yeah, maybe that's why people just seem so dilute now. I really am like just 1/40th of a Barbary pirate with 1/40th of his get up and go.
Right.
No wonder I'm not like waylaying any ships.
His
and
get up
taking
and
their
go must
booty.
have got up and went.
Yeah, all this aside, the idea of reincarnation is very tempting to people. It connects us with our past. It maybe explains phenomena like deja vu, where we feel like there's some vast memory behind us just out of reach. And it makes us seem more important.
I wonder.
We're part of history.
There's got to be a component to people who want to be recalling a past life, like the tantalizing hope that maybe they'll remember where they stashed a bag of gold. Like, I used to be and if I could just remember, I'm sure I put some gold in in a wall here somewhere. You're
like the kind of time traveler that would go back and be like, I'm not killing Hitler. I'm buying IBM shares. You just want to be know where the Confederate gold is hidden.
Yeah, Hitler Schmittler.
I want to know where a Near Mint Action Comics #1 is. What attic do I have to look in?
I do sometimes think that right now, somewhere on the planet, there is the world's largest undiscovered treasure, which will be discovered someday. It's just that we don't know where it is. We're walking over it all the time.
What if it's tiny? What if there is what if we got it all? All these National Geographic guys got it all.
I don't think
it's
so.
It's just old men with metal detectors now finding, old wheat pennies.
I think right now, somewhere in a field outside of Koblenz, there's a hole, there's like a pit with $1 billion of Visigothic gold, and people are just riding their bikes over it on their way to work.
Well, the Bridey Murphy case is interesting because this is a past life claimant. There we go. Claimant claims who was not in it for the money. Her believed past life was not a wealthy or important person or a celebrity of any kind. So not in it for the fame either. But ironically, she did become very famous. It started in Pueblo, Colorado in 1952 with a tractor dealer named Maury Bernstein, who became very interested via a friend in hypnosis.
A tractor dealer in Pueblo, Colorado named Maury Bernstein.
You don't think...
I mean, there's just three things I have to overcome to get on with this story. But okay, all right, let's assume.
Do you have to pretend that there were Jewish people in Pueblo, Colorado in 1952?
I mean, no, but I mean, like Jewish tractor dealers in Pueblo, Colorado. You're setting the scene, and it's a very...
When you get up to the top of the tractor dealership industry all over the world, it's all controlled by the same powerful cabal.
That's right.
Of Bernstein.
The international tractor conspiracy.
And he was into hypnosis, possibly to trick people into buying more tractors? Hard to say.
Oh, he was into hypnosis.
Yeah, he saw a friend perform hypnosis at a party kind of as a parlor trick and started buying cheap paperbacks about it. Maybe just for self-help reasons. That was one of the appeals of hypnosis early. I'm not going to say he necessarily wanted to seduce every young woman in Pueblo, Colorado, but it's not impossible. Or maybe, again, he just wanted people to buy bigger and nicer tractors.
Yeah, I feel like we forget that the mid-50s seemed maybe like rural communities felt less isolated than they do now, because it felt like a world of possibility was opening up, jet travel and the interstate highway. And so you could live in Pueblo and be a person that was into sophisticated parlor games like hypnosis and Ouija boards.
If your pastor would let you get away with it, or your cool Jewish friend is into it, I guess.
But now, if you were living in Pueblo, I think you'd feel much more...
I'd just go to Pueblo for the government pamphlets. That's the only reason I would ever go there. Like, I want to know how to fireproof my basement.
Yep.
And I want to learn about the history of the national parks. I maybe want to collect some coins.
It's all there in Pueblo Canyon City.
Pueblo will tell you all about it. I should know the zip code too. I think I used to know that zip code better than the Zoom one. Do you remember those TV ads where it would be right to Pueblo, Colorado?
Sure.
Blah, 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 blah. So I just looked up the government publications office, and under contact us, it just says email us.
Oh, that's devastating.
Isn't that awful?
Well,
it was like 91005 or something like that. That sounds right.
What I've learned is
81005.
81005.
Does that sound right?
Well, it sounds closer.
We're definitely getting there. Let's just start sending stuff, and when we start to get pamphlets about sleep apnea, we'll know we had the right zip code.
It turns out that Pueblo had a steel mill there, and because the steel mill attracted people from all nationalities coming to work in the mill, that Pueblo was known as the melting pot of the West.
So it was kind of it's not Eisenhower suburbia, but it is kind of a bustling little city.
Yeah, that's right. It had 40 different languages spoken in Pueblo at a certain point because there were so many people there in this bustling city of industry.
So Maury, the Tractor King, has been experimenting with hypnosis, and at a party in November 1952, he's telling friends about it, and they all want to try it out.
Hypnosis,
yes. They want a demonstration. So he has a friend of his who's at the party,
renowned hypnotist.
Bernsteinio, the Magnificent. He has his friend, Virginia Ty, a pretty young housewife, Ginny Ty, married to a local car dealer, has her lie down on the couch.
Oh, boy.
This is why he got into hypnosis.
I guess so.
No, and he tries a trick, a thing he saw done once, an aged regression. Hypnosis is often used, I think to this day in psychotherapy, to do this, to get people to, if the traumas that shaped you in your childhood, let's go
all the way back.
Re-examine them. Let's even go past them and unearth them and figure them out. And
all the way back to when you lost your binky.
We're going to recreate the birth trauma. You're going to have to climb out of this, from under this IKEA coffee table or something.
Yep. Cry out your past hurts.
Right.
I do it every day.
So he brings Virginia back to her child. So he puts her under with a candle. He puts her in a trance by kind of waving a candle in front of her face.
Mm-hmm. That works.
That's a huge hit at
totally
this
verified.
50s Jell-O party. And once she's there, he has her go back into her childhood, and he takes her back all the way to. Oh my gosh, the ghost is back. This is starting to creep me out a little. He takes her back to her childhood, to her being a baby, to birth, and then it seems to me he just kind of swings for the fences and asks her, "Hey, why don't you keep going? Can you imagine some other scene, some other place, some other time?" And a few minutes go by, and suddenly, Virginia complies. And she says, "Well, now I'm a child again, but I'm scratching the paint off a metal bed." She starts speaking with an Irish brogue and describing scenes that are unfamiliar to anything else she's described in her childhood. And when Bernstein asks her her name, she says, "My name is Bridey Murphy."
Bridey Murphy.
Bridey Murphy. And everyone is fascinated by this idea that maybe she's remembering a past life, something she had before she was born.
Seems like it. I don't need to be convinced anymore.
I'm done.
Yeah. Great show.
And that concludes. We can't do the false ending thing anymore. We've done it so much.
We haven't done it that much.
We have more fake endings than Matthew Sweet or the Beach Boys. So Maury Bernstein and she are both fascinated by this.
Right.
And so they continue to come back and
she keeps coming back for more.
Yeah, she can't get enough. Get enough Maury.
Maury Bernstein made the right choice when he picked up his hypnotist book.
His pretty young housewife. He begins tape recording the sessions because he's so fascinated. And as he asks her about Bridey Murphy's life, he finds that she is an inexhaustible trove of information. She doesn't get stumped or become vague. Any question he asks, she will supply an answer full of detail about the life of Bridey Murphy. Together, Bernstein and Ty discover that Bridey Murphy was born in 1798 near Cork, Ireland, kind of a middle-class, redheaded Protestant Irish girl. She lived in a wooden house called The Meadows outside of Cork. She describes in detail her parents, her family. Bridey had two brothers. She went to Mrs. Strain's day school. Eventually, as a young woman, she marries a Catholic boy named Sean McCarthy. He's a barrister who later they moved to Belfast together, and he teaches at Queen's University. And this is all incredibly vivid and exciting for them, as you can imagine. She will describe Irish customs of the 19th century. She'll tell stories and folk tales. She will sing. At one point, he asks her to demonstrate an Irish jig. I guess his knowledge of Ireland is not that deep, but she complies. She shows him some dance steps that Bridey knew. Under hypnosis. All under the same kind of hypnotic trance. And Bridey's story apparently ends. He gets to the end of her life. Towards the end of her life in the 1850s, I think she's crippled in a fall down some stairs. And a few years later, when her husband is at church, did you just ring the bell?
No.
Was that funny to you?
No.
Poor, middle-class Irish women falling downstairs? That's a joke to you?
No.
She dies while her husband is at church, complications from her injuries in 1864. So at age 66. And at that point, she keeps remembering, she describes being in kind of a painless, event-free limbo where it's kind of lonely because people will drift up and then chat, but then they'll go away and she never sees them again. And apparently she must have been in that limbo for about 60 years because Ginny Ty was not born until 1923.
Oh, well, this gives a lot more credence to the idea that I'm RFK.
Yeah, if she can last 60 years,
right?
RFK can wait a few months to come back in a strapping young Alaskan body.
Absolutely. I could be Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, who died 60 years before our births in the teens. Mark Twain. You're probably Mark Twain.
Maybe I'm Mark Twain.
He died about 60 years before your birth.
Let's see. Deaths of 1908.
You know what's exciting is hearing people slowly say the thing they're typing. People in the future have conquered time.
How do I get to
How do I search people who died in the 1910s?
Well, it's interesting because this story is all happening clearly in an era before it was super simple to research this type of story. I mean, now if somebody said this...
Yeah, at the party, people would be on Google, right?
Well, and especially since she's claiming to be reincarnated from someone who lived, well, not that long ago. I mean, within living memory, right? There would be people presumably still alive who could attest to Bridey Murphy.
Or her family.
Her family.
I mean, if she died in 1860, there's almost a 100-year gap.
There would be
memory of her.
And plenty of census records. And
she's naming specific places and establishments. She's certainly not worried about verification. She's naming schools, universities, the church, the little parish they attended in Belfast. And of course, when they were just doing this at a party, there's no expectation that anyone would try to validate or verify it.
Right. Seems pretty cool. And then everybody goes home and goes, wow. But I'm guessing this went a little further.
That did come later. So a reporter for the Denver Post somehow gets wind of this and writes a series about Virginia Ty's mysterious party trick. And Bernstein, so this catches the public attention, and Bernstein realizes there's a book in it.
Mm-hmm.
And he heads to Ireland to research it. So do reporters for different newspapers, a Chicago newspaper, Life magazine sends somebody. So people start looking into the phenomenon of Bridey Murphy and, hoping, I'm sure in many cases, hoping to debunk it because, boy, what a scoop. Or if you could prove it. Either way, what if past lives exist? And even the people trying to offer reasonable explanations are saying things like, well, even if reincarnation doesn't exist, maybe she has some kind of ancestral memory of Ireland communicated through her chromosomes somehow. Like this is how scientists are explaining what might have happened. Like as if you would have a memory of some kind of great grandmother's private school or church parish in your brain.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly still a school of thought that's trying to trace
tap your inner ancestor.
Yeah. Like cultural trauma that has been communicated down through multiple generations, but still exists in a kind of a real form in people.
In this case, when Bernstein was asked about that, he said, no, it can't be that. And he had a very good reason because Bridey, according to Virginia Ty's recollections, never had children.
Oh.
So there would be no way for her to genetically pass along
interesting.
This kind of racial memory, however it worked.
This is strange though, because 60 years before all of this, wait, this is happening in
the 50s.
The 50s. So not even that, 50 years before, Harry Houdini really made a name for himself debunking precisely this kind of
seances and spiritualism.
Mediums.
Which a lot of the biggest names of the day believed in.
But this is now into hypnosis. So it takes on a scientific
It has the
tint.
veneer of psychotherapy, which back then was the new scientific, unimpeachable hotness.
Right.
Bernstein writes a book about his experiences with, I think, The Search for Bridey Murphy, which the publisher is hoping to sell 10,000 copies of. It sells 250,000 copies.
Whoa.
And becomes a phenomenon. They decide to start offering the tapes of their sessions for people to buy, I assume on a gramophone, on a record. You can buy an LP of Virginia Ty speaking in Irish brogue. And they sell 30,000 copies of that.
But it seems like at this point, somebody could have gone back to Cork and like walked around and said, "So where's the school?"
I'll see you in Cork, Bridey. Yeah, so that's exactly.
Hang on.
All right, there's the bell. Did you ring that, or was there some kind of spiritual presence in the room who rang the bell?
Some spiritual presence that loves puns.
We need Houdini in here to like make sure that bell stays untouched by the hand of John. Yeah, so people are investigating it, but meanwhile, the fad is out of control. 4 novelty songs get written about Bridey Murphy. Imagine you're just some Colorado housewife, and suddenly there are 4 songs about you, including the big fad of the mid-50s, rock and roll.
There's a rock and roll song about Bridey Murphy?
Yeah, and back then, it's something we forget about rock and roll is that people expected it to last like 9 months, you know?
Right.
So all the songs are like, hey, it's rock and roll, everyone. So the lyrics of this song begin, Bridey Murphy did the rock and roll 100 years ago. Hey, Bridey Murphy.
That's it?
I guess maybe it's to the tune of Macarena.
Uh-huh. Hey, Bridey Murphy.
Bridey Murphy jokes become common, like women giving birth will often say welcome back to their children, or maybe that's what the funny dad says.
Oh, that is funny.
You have there are Bridey Murphy parties, which are come as you were. Everybody gets to dress up as a Egyptian pharaoh or whatever British redcoat or whoever they think their ancestors were.
When my daughter was young, some of the reincarnationists in my family definitely spent time with her, looking into her eyes and saying like, "Who were you?" Like every time she did something that seemed a little more sophisticated than a 6-month-old should be, you know.
Oh, so this is just a baby who can
grasp
talk.
A pencil or whatever, and they'd be like, "She was a great writer." I mean, it's not. It still exists to this day.
Well, that's how they picked the Dalai Lama, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You put somebody on the floor, and there's like a candy and a toy and a
can of clams,
a cigarette, and a piece of paper that says, "I'm the next Dalai Lama." I think. And the kid that reaches for that paper is the next.
Well, he has to do it a couple of times, right?
So we need to do that with me, I guess.
With you?
Well, yeah.
I think it's too late for you to be the Dalai Lama.
Well, you need to have like some piece of Bud Abbott memorabilia and a piece of Agnes Moorehead, a Bewitched DVD.
Right.
And
Tallulah Bankhead, reel to reel.
Like who am I really? So yeah, among the other fads, this is great. A Houston bar actually dreamed up the reincarnation cocktail. So you could go order a gin cocktail called I'll have a reincarnation, please. I don't know why it's not called the Bridey Murphy. Copyright issues, maybe?
Probably not. Probably they're just trying to be more sophisticated.
They sold the movie rights. Teresa Wright was going to play her in the movie. And by the way, but when I say her, I do not mean Ginny Ty. The Bernstein's book used a pseudonym for her. She was called Ruth Simmons.
Oh.
So, because
in order to protect her against looky-loos?
I guess she wanted to kind of stay out of the public eye. She resisted many efforts to even though this was a huge 50s fad on a par with the hula hoop or whatever.
She made no money from it.
Yeah, she resisted any effort to be Ruth Simmons. She was very happy to be anonymous, which is in her favor. The saddest at the end point of the fad, it was a newspaper report about a young boy, a newsboy in Oklahoma, who killed himself and left a note saying,
I'll be back.
Ding. You only think grisly death is funny.
People wonder why I haven't given you a bell yet. And looking over here, you definitely do see 2 bells right next to one another.
What people don't
one of these
don't know at home is that I do have a bell. I have just never thought John was funny yet. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and I'm gonna ring it
one day.
No, he left a note saying, I'm going to get to the bottom of this, basically. Like,
whoa.
I'm sure it did not drive. I'm sure he was not a happy, well-adjusted person, but
he said, once I'm on the other side.
Yeah. Like he's going to get to the bottom of the whole Bridey Murphy reincarnation thing. It was in the forefront of people's minds, this idea that they might have lived before and they might live again. And in Bernstein's book, there is actually some supporting evidence when we get to trying to verify the story of Bridey Murphy. She used period Irish words correctly, he said. She would say tup to mean rough guy. She would call a cup a brate or a handkerchief a linen. These all check out. And some of the names and places do as well. She names greengrocers named John Kerrigan and William Farr. And when Bernstein goes to Ireland, he finds out that those people did indeed have groceries, markets at the time. She read a book talks about reading a book called The Green Bay as Bridey, which was a popular book in Ireland that was never published in America. She mentions a place called Mourne that he could never find on an American map and thought it was a problem in the story. There were many cases like this where people would try to poke holes in the story and be like, she never would have married a Catholic boy. That university wouldn't have had him on faculty. And then when he got to Ireland, people would be like, no, actually, that's all fine. There he would find that people were more supportive of the story.
Huh.
But then it all kind of crashes down.
Oh, dear.
I mean, there are some kind of things in her story that even at first glance should have seemed hopelessly naive. Bridey's father and brother were apparently named Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Scottish name, unfortunately.
Ruh-roh.
And so Bernstein had to say, well, maybe she meant Dunnock. That's the Irish equivalent. You have to kind of do this kind of apology, hand-waving kind of stuff.
No Irish Duncan.
And even worse, is her husband's name Sean? Her husband's name Sean. She pronounces it Cian.
Oh,
like
boy.
Someone who has seen the word written, but maybe has not been an Irishman for, an Irish woman for 66 years.
Right, Cian.
If you grow up and live in Ireland for 66 years, at some point somebody tells you,
That's
you know
actually
what?
Sean.
We're going to say it's Sean. We actually say Sean here. And you're like, oh boy, am I embarrassed. It's like
I only learned it from reading.
It's like when you're a kid and you think that, do you ever have a word you thought was two different words because you'd see it written out, like subtle and subtle, or
Are you kidding me? That's like 1/3 of the words I know.
half the English language?
I pronounce them one way when I'm trying to pronounce the one I read, and then I also speak English, so I know the other word.
You thought Soviet and Soviet were two different words.
They are.
Right. I've never seen it written with the L.
I remember my dad said something to me that I wanted to express some contempt for, and I said, "Oh, pshaw." And of course he heard it. He heard me say something different, and he was like, "What did you just say?" And grabbed me by the shirt.
He thought you were swearing?
He thought I said piss off.
Oh, piss off. Oh.
And I was like, pshaw, pshaw. And he's like, what? Shaking me by the shirt. And I was like,
not a thing.
no, it's, Don Knotts or it's it's something I read in Mad Magazine. PSHAW. And my dad was like, oh, I see. You mean, psh.
I feel like we're so far from people actually saying psh that more people are probably saying it either faux ironically or naively as pshaw now. Like you were just ahead of your time. When Life magazine sends a guy to Ireland, it gets worse. There's, specifically what you would want as a record, a church record saying Bridget Murphy, born this date, died this date, and nobody can find it. There's no genealogical evidence. And it's not just that. There is no home called the Meadows outside of Cork. And it's not just that, but the home she describes, a wooden cottage, is essentially impossible. All the homes in that area would have been stone, of course, because wood does not stand up to the depressing Irish weather.
There's less wood in Ireland than there are Duncans.
And there's not that many Duncans and 0 wooden Duncans. Her church doesn't appear to exist. There's no St. Teresa's where she said there was. Her honeymoon itinerary seems to make no geographic sense. And in fact, seems kind of confused with the account she gave him of a trip to Antrim when she was 10. There's no Dooley Road in Belfast. So, all these things keep falling apart. And then the Life magazine reporter finds what appears to be the smoking gun, which is things in Ginny Tighe's actual childhood, which appear to very closely mirror Bridey Murphy's life.
Ding, ding, ding. What?
When she was growing up in Chicago, the reporters found there was a woman across the street named Bridget Murphy Corkle.
Oh, dear.
So not Bridget Murphy from Cork, but Bridget Murphy Corkle. They were able to find that her family had lots of Scotch-Irish relatives who would come tell her stories about Gaelic lore.
How old was she at this time?
Well, Bernstein went to his grave believing the whole thing and said, no, he wrote a second version of The Search for Bridey Murphy where he tried to debunk some of the holes that had been poked and said, people are saying that her whole life she had these Irish relatives show up and filling her head. In fact, that's not true. Ginny tells me she didn't even meet these people till she was 18. But apparently it's beyond dispute that at some point growing up, she heard Irish stories from relatives. Her foster parents said she always wished she was a brown-haired girl who wished she had red hair. So there's some element of reincarnation wish fulfillment. Maybe it's not, I'm Cleopatra's handmaiden, but at least I have the pretty red hair I always wanted.
Right.
And her high school drama teacher says that she did Irish brogue as a bit. I guess her parents say she would often do Irish brogue just as a bit around the house. And her high school drama teacher says that at one point for a project, she did a series of Irish monologues in full accent, including one about a character with the initials BM. It's like Bridget Mayon or something. And it was called Mrs. Dooley on Archer Road. Again, reminiscent of Dooley Road, the place she said where Bridey lived in Belfast.
So was this debunking then accusing her of falsifying it, or was it, is all of this to suggest that she just subconsciously had all this input and it came out in the form of like it was delusional, but she really believed her own story?
Yeah, I think she's probably what we would call a sincere fraud. There's really not a lot. It's hard to make the case that there's any kind of hoax going on. Both she and Bernstein were respectable pillars of the community. They did all their sessions in front of interested witnesses. So they were certainly not collaborating on a story with details.
Virginia did not profit from this.
Right. And that's the main thing. For the rest of her life, she seemed extremely guileless about the whole thing. She was as mystified and interested in Bridey as anyone, but turned down multiple chances to get rich on it.
So there is this phenomenon called cryptomnesia.
Yes.
Which is, it applies to in a couple of different ways. It's most often used to describe like a writer who writes a story and it turns out that it was plagiarized from a book that they read when they were 8 years old and forgot having
totally
read.
Unconscious.
And they're just like, oh, I had this great story. It describes a process where
it's happened to me on Twitter where a great joke idea will pop into my head and and often, somebody will point me to a previous joke and I'll be like, well, there's only so many jokes. This is clearly parallel evolution. But there are other times where I'll be like, oh, you know what? I did see that and I'd forgotten.
I had it just recently. For the last probably decade, I have referred to this film review I wrote for The Stranger that I thought was, because I used to write reviews of films for The Stranger 25 years ago. And I remember one in particular that I did just an amazing job on. I was super proud of, and I would refer to it all the time. Like, oh, I once wrote this film review about this movie. And I went looking for it just a couple of days ago and discovered that actually that film review was written by Sean Nelson, like my bandmate and partner in crime.
Are you saying that in a past life you were Harvey
Sean
Danger
Nelson.
frontman Sean Nelson?
That's right. It's weird because he's still alive even to this day. But
you need to know where he put the flagpole set of royalties. Where are they buried, John?
I think what happened is we're both like fractional Robert Kennedys.
Right.
And so
Is Sean born in 68 as well?
No, he's not. He's closer to you, but
so he was in limbo for longer. Part of Bobby's soul was waiting to get out.
Maybe that film review was written by someone in ye old Ireland, and it was transmitted to us through the soul of Robert Kennedy.
Well, I've read research that it's shockingly easy to implant memories in people, and specifically the kind of dynamic you see with a very suggestible person in a hypnotic trance, where someone keeps interrogating them with follow-up questions, and they feel they have to supply an answer. That's when they're just going to dredge up some half-remembered or subconsciously remembered thing.
Right.
And that's how one legacy of this is, all the kind of inadvertent hypnosis that might be behind all those ritual satanic abuse cases of the 80s where daycare parents, and sometimes in some cases, even the perpetrators became convinced that elaborate molestation scenarios had gone on in daycares in ways that could not possibly have actually happened. But
that would be a good entry in the omnibus, because that certainly was the recovered memory fad of the late 80s, early 90s.
We should save it for another entry. But you can see it in more benign ways as well. Like they'll do studies where they'll ask people if they remember going to Disneyland as a kid. And if people who say yes, I think you can get something like 40% of them to remember the picture they took with Bugs Bunny. Uh-huh. And at that point you tell them, well, hey, dummy, Bugs Bunny's a Looney Tunes character. And they'll fight you on it. They'll be like, no, I totally remember Bugs Bunny. You can get people to remember being lost in a shopping mall, whether it actually happened or not. And I think there's a lot of evidence that that most people cannot even really form memories until, shockingly late in childhood, that everything we think we remember before we were 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever is something
from
that's been
photographs and stories.
Yes, a photo we saw, a family story.
Right.
I can debunk that in my case because I remember a few things that I never told anyone else with great vividness. Like my getting lost in a mall story, I remember the conversation I had with the nice teens who found me and took me to the clerk. Something my parents never would have known. And I remember like a Sesame Street skit that really scared me to death when I was very young about a set of Chinese dragons that I never told anyone because I was embarrassed. But I found the sketch on YouTube a couple weeks ago. It still exists.
You've told us all now.
Yeah, now the whole future knows that I'm scared of the Muppet who finds the Chinese dragon.
Well, I remember dating a teenage Annette Funicello, and there's nothing you can say to dislodge that memory.
But not Mia Farrow? You're a Funicello type.
I was never a Pharaoh, always a Funicello.
There are two types of men, and I think I too am a Funicello. Bridey Murphy, for her part, well, I guess Virginia Ty, later Virginia Morrow, for her part, regretted the whole thing. It had brought a lot of complication and unhappiness to her life. I guess one takeaway, maybe this is a little reductive, but it's easy to imagine her as like a bored 50s housewife.
Who's just looking for a little action.
Yeah, like who feels like she has a richer inner life than her dopey car dealer husband or her superficial neighbors are giving her credit for. She was in drama in high school. She did fun plays and dreamed of a bigger life.
She has a good Irish accent,
Here
which
she can do
I don't
She
have.
can nail an Irish accent. Here she is in Pueblo. And it's not that she's putting on a hoax. It's just that this is something she maybe yearns for and is not even aware of, a more romantic, interesting inner life than she gets on the outside.
And definitely probably as it spiraled out of control, much harder to put the brakes on it. I mean, if you were the most famous housewife in Pueblo for a couple of weeks, that could have been pretty exciting. But
once you're in the Denver Post,
as soon as Life magazine is knocking on people's doors in Ireland.
Well, plus she probably has very little control. I mean, she comes out of a trance and has no idea what she said. I mean, this is all going to be news to her as well.
Right.
And in her New York Times obituary, she tells an interviewer later in life, "If I had known what was going to happen, I would never have laid down on the couch."
And that concludes Bridey Murphy, entry 818.JB1414, certificate number 29314 in the omnibus. Futurelings, we have no idea whether you laughed your way through this entire show because you yourselves are communicating with the reincarnated spirits of Ken Jennings and myself, John Roderick.
They could be the reincarnated spirits of us.
You could all be fractional, diluted versions of me and Ken.
They each have one of our memories. One futureling remembers the scary Chinese dragon.
Each one of our memories becomes its own sentient being.
There's a futureling out there named Pasha who only remembers your dad thinking you told him to piss off.
There's a futureling who its entire soul and whole experience is that it once buried its 9th grade geometry homework in the backyard inside of a Sela meal bag.
Wait, so there is somebody who knows where treasure is buried.
Well, I think that
is it not still there?
I think the people that own that house actually dug it up in the garden and brought it inside and told one of their neighbors who told one of my friends that still lives in Anchorage that they found my homework buried in the yard.
Did you get in trouble after all these years?
No, thank goodness. The statute of limitations had expired. But in the unlikely event that you are your own sentient beings with independent lives and souls, you may be on social media, which would indicate to us that you're not an evolved life form.
They're definitely my descendants.
Are they?
If they're on
the treadmill, the habit.
The habit rail.
The habit trail of Facebook, even now, even 1,000 years from now.
Institutional memory.
They're in there just tweeting up a storm. People are like, that joke was already told 7,500 times.
Also, Twitter doesn't exist. You're tapping on a cinder block in the rubble of civilization.
If you want inspiration, you can go to our former social media places, read Ken's super punny tweets where he takes on all the big powers. He's out there. He's out there on the front lines
against the Illuminati
with his flaming sword there on the overturned horse carts at the barricades.
Telling puns to the Trilateral Commission.
That's right. His shirt ripped so that one nipple is exposed. You can find him there at Ken Jennings on Twitter. I'm at John Roderick. We also have at Omnibus Project and all the social media outlets. You can look at my Instagram account and you can follow it and send me DMs because my DMs are open. If you want to send me any,
you want to slide from the future into John's DMs,
slide into my DMs,
time slide into the old DMs.
You can send us email to omnibusproject@howstuffworks.com. Even though Facebook is increasingly known to be like maybe one of the one of the 5 pillars of crimes against humanity.
One of the most evil institutions ever created.
It is a dark cesspool, but still over there are omnibus futurelings who are somehow managing to eke out a life from the decayed plant matter that floats to the bottom.
They're making the best of it.
They are.
Those plucky young proto-futurelings.
You know, even champagne is full of bacteria. I'm trying to make the opposite point, though. Even sewer water is full of champagne.
Has caviar floating in it.
Yeah.
If you didn't chew your caviar enough.
I mean, think about all the champagne that gets poured down into the sewers.
Does it?
Well, sure. At the end of the night, you've got like a third of a bottle of champagne. You're drunk.
Every time I see champagne, like in a locker room or a rap video, like it's going everywhere. Like it looks like most of it's going into the drain. Like we're wasting a ton of champagne in our
Is that where you
civilization.
primarily see champagne is locker rooms and rap videos?
That's, I would say, where I see 100% of my champagne. Where are you seeing champagne? Like at christening of ships?
No, I mean, typically when I come into my comped hotel room
I see.
and then, there's like a Bond villain who happens also to be a beautiful woman who's wearing like a leather trench coat, and she lets it slip to the floor. And underneath it, all she's wearing is a bottle of champagne.
All she's wearing is a Mouseketeer sweater that says Annette and nothing else.
Nothing else. And there's champagne, chilling there in the bucket. I see a lot of that champagne.
This is the difference between your life and my life, man. Like I'm stuck watching.
Watching rap videos.
I'm stuck watching Nelly open bottles of champagne.
Drinking grape knee-high and thinking it's too fizzy. So go to the Futurelings on Facebook. Also, please send us real-life packages. Again, my suit size is 44 long, but my shirt is an 18-inch neck.
Fun fact. A lot of people don't know that.
You can send mail, and then Ken weighs what, 145 pounds dripping wet? What are you?
38 regular.
You're 38 regular, and what are you, 160? No.
I wish I was 160. I was probably 160 when we started the show.
But then all of the...
By the time the Futurelings hear this, I'm a 400-year-old man. Like
all the peanut brittle I put over on that side of the desk.
All those wax pumpkins.
Send us mail to P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington 98155.
There's also an email address.
I said email us at omnibusproject@howstuffworks.com, and Ken will probably answer it.
You might answer.
Sometimes I answer.
Sometimes I answer as you.
Oh, I should go look at it more carefully.
I'll just be like, I don't care about this. Send me a suit, bitch. John Roderick.
I have been moderating our Facebook page a little bit, the Futurelings page. It seems like a lot of people apply to be members, but don't answer the 2 questions that are like the quiz questions to make sure you're not a bot. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, I don't know if I should approve them or not.
Well, I don't either, because it's like you look at their profile and they're clearly an omnibus listener.
Just answer the question.
But there are 2 questions that you need to answer, and they haven't answered the question. So I don't know. I leave them in the queue, but then it seems like maybe you approve them or somebody else approves them.
I've never approved them.
Well,
maybe some unseen hand.
Somebody at How Stuff Works is approving people without our approval.
Well, if they start posting spam, you can be like, told ya.
Yeah.
I think they're legit. They're just too lazy to... Maybe they have anxiety. They're like, what if I answer this wrong?
Right.
What if time is not a flat circle?
I'll be excluded.
Like, what if time's a torus? They have no idea.
They could say it. If they say Taurus, that's fine. I'll let them in.
So you're going to let in any plausible answer?
Yeah. They don't have to answer it right.
Even if you think it's hornwash?
If I say, what shape is time, and you give any answer other than I don't know, it's just as correct as any other answer.
You'll accept any answer. What if the answer is, screw you, John, I'm not answering your questions?
I think you are looking for a different Facebook group.
I'd approve that one.
You're looking for the Screw You John Facebook group.
Which is much larger.
Which also has a big active fan base.
Listeners, from our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived. We hope and pray that whatever catastrophe looms in front of us may never come. We hope all the experts are wrong together. But if the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may be our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for yet another entry in the Omnibus.